have a bunch to get into today, including something that's happening to certain users of Nintendo Switch 2. Even though Nintendo does issue warnings about this, you know, everyone skips by all that stuff. And it's not going to change the fact that it is something that could happen, especially maybe more common with children, I would say, than adults, but could really happen to anyone. We also need to talk about some updates coming to one of the Nintendo Switch 2 exclusive games that launched. That's right, there is more than one. So we talk about some updates coming to that. We have some news from a major development partner with Nintendo who is talking about the power of the platform and what the platform is more comparable to. No more Digital Foundry comparisons, no more speculation, no more sitting there counting teraflops and other little spec sheets out there, megahertz and gigahertz and L cache speeds and bus speeds. And no, how about an actual developer just coming straight out and saying, hey, we're literally making games for this thing, and this is what we're finding it most comparable to when you want to compare it to anything outside of the Nintendo ecosystem. And then we have to dive into, yes, folks, the Nintendo Switch 2 is being restocked, and we have news about that. Now, before we dive in, I got to remind you, we have 5 copies of Donkey Kong Bonanza we're giving away right now. We'll be picking the winners in July before the game comes out. To enter, all you got to do is go down to the link down in the description or the pinned comment. Now, without further ado, let's go ahead and get to our first thing about the issue with the Nintendo Switch 2 that they do warn you about when you set the system up. So, random ouch. Switch 2 owners are feeling the pinch with the new Joy-Con. Oh boy, here we go. After tinkering with the Switch 2 for about a week now, the general consensus among Nintendo Life staff is that the new magnetic Joy-Con are simply marvelous. On the original Switch, there was always a sense that the Joy-Con weren't quite as secure as we would have liked, and this was simply exacerbated by general wear and tear. The Switch 2's new magnet technology keeps the Joy-Con completely locked in place. There's absolutely zero unsavory wiggle. I want to know here, there actually is a little bit of wiggle, but it's actually by design. If you play Welcome to, or you'll find out why. Anyways, it feels incredibly premium as a result. According to a new report from Automation, however, some folks in Japan are actually getting the skin on their fingers trapped between the Switch 2 Joy-Con while attaching the controllers. Ouch. The first example comes from a user over on X here, and you can kind of see this. You can see like the little pinch mark on their finger. So the magnets of the Switch 2 Joy-Con are so strong that many people get their fingers pinched. I got my finger pinched too. It was pretty painful. When Nintendo would say things like no class action lawsuits in advance, so they're hiding things like this when they sell them. And again, we talk about how Nintendo actually isn't hiding this. While there definitely are other feeling the pinch too, they pointed out that Nintendo has specifically warned users to watch their fingers when attaching the Joy-Con. And it's right there in those screenshots. And yeah, they give an example of obviously putting your finger there almost intentionally, getting it pinched. What I've learned by playing Switch 2 so far is that when you put it on the controller, it hurts a lot if the skin of your fingers gets caught in it. It was not intentional, but sometimes it gets stuck without my awareness. Those who have bought it and those who have small children, please be careful. And they point out here that there are people who are making a fuss about getting their fingers stuck, but it's written in the instruction manual. The people who are making a fuss about suing over something like this are just too crazy. That's the take of some people online. Again, the instruction manual, both with that comes with the system and when you set the system up, does explain that this can happen and you are warned to watch out for your fingers. Now, I had debated for a long time in this story, like, do I go ahead and pinch my fingers? Like, I haven't had any problems, like, but I don't know. I hadn't even thought about it. I still haven't had any problems. So I'm like, you know what? Maybe we should try to intention, because again, this trigger is near the edge. But like when I go to put it on, you can see how my fingers are just naturally curled. So I never have an issue connecting this thing. And even if I let go of that button, when I go to connect it, my fingers are still nowhere near it. Now, obviously I have the kill switch on. So let's go ahead and take the kill switch off of this right Joy-Con. And let's see if we can feel the pinch ourselves. I'm going to intentionally try to pinch my finger. I'm not saying to do this at home, folks. This actually sucks because the finger I'm going to try to pinch is my pointer finger. I feel like that's the most likely one to get pinched. You know, if you're holding it like this, I feel like that's the most likely one to get pinched. So I want to go ahead and give this a pinch. And yeah, please do not try this at home. This might even be exasperated by the fact I have a little bit of a case on here, making this even thicker. This could be a worse pinch than you might get. But you know what? For science, right? For science, I'm literally leaving my finger right here, like maybe a kid would do. So let's go ahead and do I let it pull? Okay. So yeah, I got pinched a little bit there. It honestly wasn't that bad. I gotta be honest. If they're saying that hurts a lot, I guess, you know, I don't know. I didn't find that to be that bad. I just want to admit that, that was all right. Maybe we should try it without, let's take off the kill switch case entirely and try this. Cause maybe that's actually making it hurt less. So we're gonna go ahead and pinch that same finger. Now we got the full Switch 2 out here, no case on it. You can see from the side, there's no case. Let's go ahead and just do that again. I did get the pinch. I had to like wait and kind of let it wedge in there. There was a massive opportunity for me to pull it out last time. That might have been due to the case. So let's go ahead and, well, I guess intentionally pinch my finger again. Please do not try this at home. I don't encourage people to hurt each other or hurt yourselves. And guess what? They say not to do this. Like, watch out for this. Again, this is an unnatural position for me to put the controller in. This is how I normally put it in, just like this. That's how I normally put it in. My fingers are curled. I don't even think about it. However, some children and adults might hold it differently. So here we go. Intentional pitch in 3, 2. Oh my God, this is really hard to intentionally pinch. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Okay. I am pinched in there. I don't know if you can see it very well. You see a little whiteness on my finger there from the pinch. Look, I mean, it didn't feel good. I'm not going to sit there and act like that was a good feeling, but it's whatever. The pain's already subsiding. Obviously, you know, your variance is going to vary based on the size of your fingers, the pliability of your skin. Your age could have something to do with it as well. Like if you're older with me and have maybe stretchier skin, maybe that plays a role. I don't know. Maybe if you're younger, look, I'm not a kid. I can only test my own finger here, right? But to me, that really wasn't all that bad. So look, yeah, your finger can get pinched. I don't think it would get pinched under normal use, but you know, it could happen. Nintendo does warn about it. What do you expect? You're slapping magnets together. It's always possible. Just watch out for your fingers, folks, okay? Again, I just pinched my finger twice. It was a little bit worse, I guess, with the case off. I don't know. One thing I want to do is pass around this list. I'm not even sure where this list came from. It's been shared to me privately several times. People have been trying to figure out the Switch 2 backwards compatibility performance of all the games, whether it has to do with games that came with updates or games that did not get updates. And there's like this list going around. You're seeing here, you know, you have things like ARMS on here, which had a free update, capped at 60 FPS consistency, obviously increased with dynamic resolution scaling, unchanged or not noticeable with the loading times. You can see the cap frame trace, you can see it increased by the publisher. But this isn't just about tracking games that got updates. That's what's so cool about this. So, like, as an example, BioShock 2 Remastered. There's no patch. There's been no update. No update to the frame rate. In fact, nothing has really changed except that it's capped at 30 FPS in handheld, which has increased consistency. But there was no patch for this one, right? So there's other ones as well. So lots of unpatched games in here. So we can go down the list here. Let's say let's take you know, Dark Souls Remastered that has no patch. So in docked mode, you are capped at 30 FPS, but the consistency is much better on Switch 2. They have a little bit better resolution because it's increased because of the dynamic resolution scaling. Improved loading times, capped at 30 FPS, yada yada. So this is like a really cool list just to kind of look at it. Some of it provides some sources, some of it obviously are self-done. But yeah, this is cool. I really like this. This list has like 100-something games on it, I think. And I think it's growing every single day, 117. So just kind of a great way to quickly glance if anything's improved with games. Maybe you're considering buying from Switch 1 because you think it'll be better on Switch 2 with or without. So anyways, there you go. I'll go ahead and link this list down below. If somebody knows where it came from, that would be great because I'd love to give the creator of it credit. But for right now, I don't really know. It was DM'd to me by like 5 people, and I can't really quite figure out where it came from. That being said, we also have this stuff going out there from Nintendo Life that deals with Fast RMX, or wait, why am I bringing up Fast RMX? Isn't it Fast Fusion? Well, because a track from Fast RMX is coming back with an update. So Fast Fusion's first content update includes a remade Fast RMX track. Fast Fusion is a Switch 2 exclusive. So Shinen Multimedia's Fast Fusion has proven to be a big hit with Nintendo Switch 2 owners, earning a coveted score of 9 out of 10 on, well, Nintendo Life. The company isn't quite done with the game, however, and we can reveal that first upcoming content update will contain a remade track from Fast RMX. You might be able to recognize it from the image above, but for those unaware, the track is Alpine Trust. Shinen has confirmed that it will boast revamped visuals and gameplay elements. It is also confirmed that this is just one of the courses in the upcoming update, but the total number is unknown for now. In addition to the new tracks, Shinen will be adding a new graphics mode simply dubbed Pure in response to fan feedback regarding the slightly blurry visuals. And those blurry visuals are because they're heavily using DLSS, and they're using it, they're almost abusing it if you go watch the Digital Foundry video. Anyways, this will remove the anti-aliasing and reprojection from the image, producing a much cleaner presentation. There's no specific release date for the new content, but we suspect it will be launching sooner rather than later. For now, Fast Fusion is well worth checking out if you're a fan of racing series like Wipeout and F-Zero. And I can Concur. In fact, I'll link to a review of the game down below. There was a really in-depth review done by Thunderstash Gaming, co-host of the podcast. You guys should go check that out for Fast Fusion. Gives you a really good idea of what we're working with here. You know what we also really get a good deal about? How about the power of Nintendo Switch 2? Now, we've talked about this so much over the last couple of years. The conversation can feel exhausting, and now that it's in our hands and we have performance metrics, a lot of people are just coming to conclusions. Obviously, well, we have to recognize that the games that come out at the beginning of the console's life are not indicative of the full capabilities of the platform, because those kind of games always come later in life, even from the first party studios. Now, what's interesting here is we have an actual developer giving us a comparison for the Switch 2, and they're doing something that's, I think, going to make a lot of people very happy, because these are people actually making games for Switch 2. No more speculation, no more, just outside analysts. How about people literally making games, saying what the system is closer to? Remember, there's been a lot of debate. Is it really just like a portable PlayStation 4? Or is it something significantly more? Well, WCCF Tech's over here saying Wild Hearts S Q&A. Switch 2 is closer to the Series S than the PlayStation 4. Now, who's this coming from? Obviously, people who made Wild Hearts, so it's part of our interview series. We just new developer Q&A with Koei Tecmo about their upcoming game, Wild Hearts S. It's the new version of Wild Hearts, the monster hunting game that Koei Tecmo's Omega Force studio released in February 2023 for PC, PS5, and Xbox Series S and X. Notably, this is not on last-gen platforms. It's really cool because they interviewed the producer of the game, Takuda Edogawa. I'm probably butchering that. I apologize. To learn more about this version. So we're going to go on to the Q&A part here. We're going to talk about, we're kind of going to go over most of this, because the reality is this is all about Switch 2. So it says, when did you first receive your Nintendo Switch 2 development kit? So thank you for asking, but he can't provide specifics, that's an NDA thing. Fair enough. How long has Wild Hearts been in development? It's kind of like a double-edged sword question there. What do you think about the new platform's easy development? He said, I can't disclose how long it's been in development, because I would also give away probably how long they've had a dev kit. But I think since we built up the experience with the Switch development environments, despite this being a brand new hardware launch, it was a pretty developer-friendly environment. Can you share your thoughts on the new console? What is the most interesting new feature in your opinion? You got to go with the chat feature. Okay, so we'll move on from that, the chat feature. In terms of raw computing power, here you go. Here's the headline. Is it closer to the PlayStation 4 or the Xbox Series S? There's a lot of characteristics when it comes to raw computing power, so it's difficult to generalize. So he's just noting, hey, there's like a lot of things that take into consideration. But I think it can be thought as closer to the Series S. There's your big headline, folks. The producer of Wild Hearts being like, nah, you know what? Yeah, there's a lot of things to consider, but, closer to the Series S. Okay, there you go. Are you using NVIDIA DLSS super resolution for your game? And he says, we're not using it. What resolution or frame rate options are you offering? He's not going to give any of that information right now. They're going to wait. He says, Wild Hearts was originally available for the new consoles. What challenges that you face when porting this game to the new Switch 2 hardware? It is on Xbox Series S, by the way. So we were able to handle the graphics quality and performance adjustments within the scope we had imagined, especially in portable mode. The high-quality LCD makes the graphics look smoother and more precise than the actual specs, which helped a lot. However, even though this isn't particular to the Switch 2's processing power, we struggle with processing and increasing multiplayer from 3 to 4 players. For Wild Heart characters, we were very particular with the character creation feature, and it's very robust, so adding an additional character was a huge challenge. So basically they're noting, because there's so many customization options with the characters, they had a little bit of a challenge having that 4th character get added in. Basically saying that was the biggest challenge in making the game. It wasn't the visuals of the game or even the ability to run the game, but like when they wanted to add that 4th multiplayer person in, just because of how many different elements can be customized, they were having a little bit of difficulty on Switch 2, but they're not saying they didn't do it. They're just saying that, hey, you asked me what the challenging part was. That was what was most challenging. All right. What do you think of the Joy-Con 2 improvements? Are you taking advantage of the improved HD Rumble? Yes, we're using HD Rumble. It allowed us to implement more nuanced vibration without additional cost for adjustments. Basically saying, hey, this isn't costing us processing power, so why wouldn't we use it? Is there anything else you'd like to add about the Switch 2 version of your game? And it says in Wild Hearts S, players can use gimmicks known as karakuri. It can be instantly created on the field for a more innovative hunting experience. I'd love to see many players enjoying the game, and I think it's a step towards our next title, so please invite your friends and happy hunting. Again, this is going to be one of those games that's going to be a nice tide me over till we get a Monster Hunter on the platform. Plus, Monster Hunter doesn't need to be the only game that's out there like that, just like there can be other games like Zelda and other games like Mario. It's good to have more franchises in those sort of genres. Now, let's go ahead and talk about this next one here, because look, folks, besides obviously being excited about the power of the system and being excited about the games, you got to be able to buy the damn thing. And look, we already went over the story late last night about how Nintendo has officially announced it sold 3.5 million over the launch weekend. But in many territories, and I can speak specifically here about the U.S., it's sold out in a lot of places in the United States. Not the entire United States. There are certain small sectors of the U.S. where it actually still was in stock all the way through the weekend and into this week. But there were many, many places where it was completely sold out, including within 1,000 miles of my house, which basically encompasses all of Wisconsin, most of Minnesota, and parts of Michigan, and even Canada. So it just was sold out anywhere that's even remotely close to consider driving to. And 1,000 miles is a pretty far distance to drive. That's just based on online inventory trackers and stuff like that, and my experience of going to a bunch of stores and it being sold out on day one. It was sold out in my area on day one. So obviously we want to know when it's going to be restocked, and chances are it could be restocked in your local area right now. For starters, Best Buy is over here making an announcement. Jake Randall put it up here. Switch 2 available online at Best Buy later today, confirmed. So right here, yep, online for in-store pickup. So Best Buy was doing that today. Might be doing that right now in your area. Also, guess what? They're not the only place to have restock here because, hey, PSA, your Target may have received a shipment overnight. Was at my local Target this morning, and they had a number of Switch 2s available. The worker at the tech counter said they had received a ghost shipment last night. What a ghost shipment is, for those who don't know, it means the store was not aware that shipment was coming in. They were not made aware. It just showed up. That's what a ghost shipment is. That basically means that there was a restock without them being aware a restock was coming in. So there you go. Check your local Targets. Obviously, Best Buy for in-store, Walmart, GameStop. Look, everyone's being restocked. I've heard GameStop's going to be getting their stock on Friday. Of course, they get ghost shipments, who knows? But my local GameStop I know said they're getting more on Friday. So I'm just saying, hey, they're going to be restocking this every week. I know people are like, oh man, it's just going to be sold out. I'm going to have to wait like a month or two to get. No, they're going to be restocking this every week. Most stores besides Best Buy right now, you can just walk in and buy it if they have it in stock. They're not holding it for online orders. Now, when it's going to go in stock to actually order online again, that's going to be up to the individual retailers. But your in-person stores, they should be, willing to sell them as soon as they arrive in. Besides Best Buy, who right now is only doing them online for in-store. But everyone else is, hey, when it comes in, we're putting it on the shelf. Just like here at Target, they're putting it on the shelf and you can go ahead, walk in and buy one. So that's great news here in the United States. This obviously can't speak to restocks in other countries, Canada, Mexico, Brazil, certain countries in Europe that might have sold out. Can't speak to obviously any stores in Japan and all that. You guys are all going to be on your own restock schedules. But Doug Bowser did assure us that they felt they had enough stock here in the United States to get through the summer period pretty well, which to me means they have enough stock to restock every single week if they need to. And they're pretty confident that they'll be able to keep up with demand. So that's really good. Also, scalpers. Nintendo's Shintaro Furukawa did something I didn't think he could do. He said his answer to scalping was to provide a shit ton of units, so much so that it doesn't make sense to scalp. And scalpers are having a very hard time selling. If you go on eBay and other resellers like that and you go to ones actually sold, there's pretty much nothing sold in the last week. Very few. Why? Because it's so easy to readily just walk in and get one. And even now, like in the areas where it completely sold out, look, we're already seeing stuff like this where suddenly there's some on the shelf. Now, that's not a ton of units there. That's like, 8 sitting there. But hey, it's better than none. So look, it's really cool to see that Nintendo is getting these restocks in. This is what I expected. They're going to keep restocking every week. I'm very curious to see what the end of June sales are going to be at the next investors meeting, which should be, usually that's in August is when they do the investors meeting for the April, May, June period. And June will obviously be a whole month essentially of sales for Switch 2. Anyways, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. I am Nathaniel Rovajans from Nintendo Prime. I got to get the hell out of here because that's time to start getting ready for tonight's Nintendo Byte podcast. You know what's up. We're going to have an awesome show tonight. So much to go over. So much has happened since launch. Obviously, we got to talk about the overall launch sales and our expectations and where they met. And there's just so much to go over. Like, we've had so much news continuing to happen despite the system coming out, maybe because the system's coming out. So we got to talk about all of that and more tonight. We got special guests coming on. It's going to be a good show. Hope to see all of you guys there. I am Nathaniel Rovajans from Nintendo Prime, and I'll catch you, if not there, at least tomorrow in our next video.